You put on the sunglasses, you're IQ.
Haiku. He couldn't write an haiku if his life depended on it.
I really wish
on
I
the bonehead.
Beat me to it. Oh, you.
That's haiku.
That's
Chad.
part of the female sheep.
Bodily function. Joke. That's an haiku.
I'm not doing Paul Lynde this week. I'm just going to say it right now.
Someone, John Stith, and I want to give a shout out to one of our most faithful adaptations. It's like, how do we adapt John Stith? One of our faithful followers, for no reason, we have no idea why he does it and why he still talks to us, said that you did a very good Paul Lynde.
I didn't do a great Paul Lynde. I just did a very good one.
Well, now even Paul,
how could John be so cruel?
Well,
even Paul Lynde didn't do a great Paul Lynde all the time, folks.
they might have. I don't know.
I mean, once again, sir, you haven't seen the Halloween special. You don't know. You
That's true.
There.
That's true. I finished watching this season of South Park. That was pretty cool.
I need to watch it, and it's on the Hulu's, I guess. Though soon it's going to be on HBO Max, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because HBO Max is Warner Brothers, and because Disney owns Hulu, and
Anyway, what's this season's topic?
This season, we now have to do a full season on a topic.
Yeah, my voice is gone a little bit. I'm sorry.
So the full season topic should be things that are awesome about me. We're gonna get canceled 2 episodes in.
He thinks
the second episode.
2 episodes. They pulled the fucking plug on the pilot.
What do we
I would say no. The second episode.
And the pilot was the guy flying him to go shoot the pilot. And they pulled the plug on that guy, so James would be lost at sea in Denver. No one thought this out.
There's things to do in Denver when you're dead.
Speaking of which, what's the topic for this episode?
We are going to explore the cinema of 1989.
So, with a little brief history on this, we've kind of touched on it before. A lot of film historians, and there's a documentary or two. There are a couple of them I've seen on Turner Classic Movies. Shout out to one of the best paid channels you can get if you're into film is Turner Classic Movies. Is 1939. It's considered by a lot of people the pinnacle, there may be the height of Hollywood film. For example, Gone with the Wind came out in 1939. The Wizard of Oz came out in 1939. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. There's a couple others, right?
Mm-hmm. One of those movies I actually like.
That's sad. There's a litany of movies that came out in that time, and they're considered classics. And they're all good. Can't argue with any of that. We're eventually going to do an episode about 1939, but a lot of people have talked about 1939. Now, if you're a child of a certain age, what 80s year is considered the best one?
I'm trying to come up with a joke. 1989. Let's say 19.
But that's not it.
No?
It's 1982.
Oh, 1982. Because of what?
It's John Carpenter's The Thing, which is the one I throw out, but it's also the summer of E.T. It's Blade Runner. James, help me out. What all came out? It's Conan. It was something every week. A lot of people. There's also a documentary about it. Let's see. There's Road Warrior. Oh, Creep Show. I'm trying to think.
When you're talking away from the mic, it's not going to pick you up very well. Just so you know.
I'm sorry. Wouldn't you eat another fucking Twizzler? Anyway, moving right along. There's a ton of movies that came out in 1982. A lot of people think 1982 is the best year. I'm not going to argue which one is the best. I just think 89 is one that has a lot of personal reasons for me. It was the summer I spent at the movies because my mom and dad were getting divorced. But why did you all want to do 89?
By the way, the films that you forgot or that you didn't mention for 82, you do have The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, The Wrath of Khan, sorry.
You have Gandhi.
Nobody remembers that one.
You have Poltergeist.
Yeah, Poltergeist is another one.
And Sophie's Choice. I didn't choose to see Sophie's Choice. I just let her pick.
Yeah, that one went dead.
Oh, Pink Floyd, The Wall, if you're into music, is 82. And King of Comedy, if you're into the Joker.
Yeah. So there's a few more for 82. Anyway, back to 89. Why is it important to you all? You agreed to do the show.
Yeah,
I
you
was
said,
hoping
let's
you'd
do
get my
1989, and I said okay.
No, 89, as I sat
That's
down
the
to
reason we keep you around for all the content.
Yep.
All right.
At-
What are you saying, James?
as I sat down to do my prep for this, because I knew some films I wanted to talk about. But what I realized was 1982, people may point to as a great year for movies. Cool, fine, whatever. I'm going to argue 1989 was the year for movie quotes. Because as I was doing preparation, I was
Movie
going through all
quote?
the films, and I was like, oh my God, people still quote these films incessantly. And sometimes they don't even know they're quoting them because it's been quoted by so many other things.
Movie quotes and movie sequels.
Yeah.
Great sequels came out that summer too. And
So-
some ones that have been fairly
And some things that are now getting sequels or becoming trilogies, 30 years later?
30 years later, yeah.
Or no, it'll be 31 for some of them. But anyway.
Okay. So do you want to start chronologically? Chad and I were looking up all these lists for 1989 movies before it started. And the best one I came up with, James found one chronological. Ranker, to give out, shout out to Ranker, has them listed about 100, and we're not going to go much more on that, of what they consider the best movies of an 89. But I think as we go through chronologically, I'll let you know where they rank on this somewhere, okay?
Okay.
James, what started in January? And we're not going to hit every one of them, right?
Yeah, because
So-
we've been here for a while.
So January 13th was the first, it's the one that, because the first week in January was Rain Man came out in late 88, and it still controlled the box office. But January 13th, these are the films that opened. And I made a joke, I think, before we were filming. Deep Star 6.
Wonderful movie. Chad and I have seen it drunk.
Well, Greg Evigan, how can you go wrong? The
Directed by
Experts,
Sean Cunningham.
Gleaming the Cube, and January Man.
Does that mean Leviathan came out in 89 as well? Because so did The Abyss.
I don't know.
Because that's the year they all came out in the same year.
Okay. Oh, very
But January is usually known as a time when studios
Yeah.
dump
Deep Star.
films.
I will speak about Deep Star. January Man's a forgotten Kevin Kline film, but I don't know that it really needs to be remembered that much. But Deep
Harvey
Star's-
Keitel and Danny Aiello. I screwed that up.
Deep Star 6 was
Leviathan was 1989.
was directed by Sean Cunningham, who is famous for not only producing Wes Craven's first film, Last House on the Left, but he also directed the first Friday the 13th and produced many of the sequels.
And he hung out with Fonzie. Oh, that's Opie. Little
That's
Opie Cunningham.
Yeah, that has a creature that doesn't quite work,
Right.
but it has Miguel Ferrer in it,
Which is a plus in anything.
and Greg Evigan, who is a national treasure. He's one of my two dads. You think
And
anybody's going to understand that or get that joke or realize what we're talking about there?
it stars one of the top 3 peoples being Nia Peoples.
And there you go. What's next? What do we got next?
Well, Gleaming the Cube too. Just to mention that. I mean, that is,
Christian Slater.
and it's a cult classic now
Yeah.
because of Christian Slater, and it's the skateboard culture.
Did you watch it when it came out?
Yeah.
Okay, I never did.
Yeah. No, I was a huge fan of Gleaming the Cube.
Really?
Mhm.
Well, they didn't have those skateboards
I like.
in the hills.
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
I have a fondness for Christian Slater movies. I even like Cuffs.
Just a minute.
best
You have a
role, Chad?
fondness for Christian Slater.
Well, yeah.
Best role, Chad? Star Trek 6.
Oh.
Come on. He's a
Actually,
big
his best
fan.
role is Interview with a Vampire.
Will Scarlet.
No, I'm sticking with Interview with a Vampire.
January really didn't have much to offer. The rest of the movies that came out through the rest of January, see if y'all know any of these. Cohen and Tate,
I've heard of it.
Roy Scheider and Adam Baldwin.
Yeah. What else?
Physical Evidence. Michael Crichton directed Physical Evidence. And then Three Fugitives, starring Alan Ruck. And other people, but Alan Ruck's the name that I wanted to say out loud.
Three Fugitives.
Fugitives,
Is that
that's
Martin
Nick
Short
Nolte.
and Nick
Nick
Nolte?
Nolte, Martin Short, and
I ju-
Alan Ruck. I skipped
I
Alan
just
Ruck.
read his autobiography. He goes into detail about several Three Fugitive stories working with Nick Nolte.
Oh, really?
Martin Short, yeah.
I'm sure that they're
They were not bad. It's just he could drink.
Yeah. Shock.
And maybe forget that he had been drinking
Yeah.
and things that he might have done whilst drinking. But other than that, he was a really nice man. All right, what else we got in January? We done?
That was it for January. That's
February. What are we looking at in February? Because we got a
February. February, we get a re-release of a film from another time zone we should talk, or a time period that we'll end up talking about eventually. Gone with the Wind's re-release for its umpteenth anniversary show.
That would have been the 60th.
Yep. Though, competing against the re-release of Gone with the Wind is such great films as Her Alibi.
With Tom Selleck.
Yep. And
Who's
Harry Crumb?
Oh, Who's Harry Crumb is a classic. We've talked about it on here.
The dark horse that came out the same week against Gone with the Wind, Her Alibi, and Who's Harry Crumb was a Cannon film, and I'm going to mispronounce this. Is it Kenjite, Forbidden Subject, starring, of course, Charles Bronson.
Bronson, yeah, Chuck Bronson.
The next week, we get Joel Schumacher's epic film, Cousins.
Whoopi Goldberg not Whoopi Goldberg, but Ted Danson and
yeah, and it has what's his face from CSI.
Sean Young, William Peterson, Lloyd Bridges, Keith.
Not Ted Danson.
Honestly, it's not a good movie. Can we, unless you all like it, skip it.
All right, I'm going to bring this one up because it is a horrible movie, but it follows up a good movie. Fly 2. February 10th, The Fly 2 was unleashed.
So Mick Garris, who we've talked about and we've recommended his podcast, was one of the writers on that. It had several different
Frank Darabont was listed as a writer on that, too.
Yeah, that's several different
There's talent behind the script. I just don't know how much.
I don't know that they ever got that script, yeah. It's not a good movie.
And Tap. And Tap is Gregory Hines and Sammy Davis Jr., and I don't know much else about it because I don't think I've ever seen it. But that's enough for me to say Tap.
I haven't either. I've honestly seen Eve of Destruction with him where he's trying to kill the lady robot more than I have seen Tap. And that is not a good movie.
And that one movie with him and Billy Crystal, that's not a good movie either.
Running Scared.
Yeah.
February 17th.
We may need to pick up the pace and get
February 17th, I want to bring up because I didn't know these came out the same weekend. And what's funny to me is I didn't know one of them took so many people to get made. Or so many studios. The Burbs came out February 17th from Universal Pictures
and Imagineering Entertainment.
But The Burbs opened against Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I didn't know that.
Oh.
Well, so we'll talk about that really quick. Bill and Ted was a modest hit, gained a sequel.
Yeah.
And it's been favored for several years. The Burbs was not a hit, even though it had Tom Hanks in it, right?
No, and it's The Burbs kind of has a cult following now.
It now has a cult following.
And it's a good movie.
I actually saw that. That must have been when they started splitting it. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to go through the whole family divorce thing. But
no, they started really splitting up years before, Joe. They just stayed together for you.
Sometime right around 78.
Oh.
It's funny to anybody that knows me.
So no, Bill and Ted's, and if you've never seen Bill and Ted, you totally should.
Yeah.
The third one's coming out, and I'm looking forward to it because I'm a child of the 80s, and I love Bill and Ted's.
Yeah, I like that. I'm really interested to see what they do with this, the end of the trilogy. Of course, if it makes money, there will be a fourth one.
So I loved The Burbs growing up. I saw it in the theater. I guess I was the one person. However, I watched it last year, and I don't think it holds up that well.
I disagree.
Are you besmirching the excellent acting of Henry Gibson? He
I
is the best of the Illinois Nazis.
I like scenes in it. I'm a huge Joe Dante fan, but didn't do it for me. Actually, you know who I think is really good in it still after all these years is Bruce Dern.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
By the way, Dana Olson wrote that. I don't know if you knew Dana Olson.
Who is that?
He's a screenwriter, Joe.
No shit.
But no, I wanted to say this because you know what other things he wrote?
No.
I think this is hilarious. He's known best for The Burbs, arguably, but he wrote
Marriage.
He wrote one of your favorite John Carpenter films.
Which one?
Memoirs of the Invisible Man.
Oh.
And George of the Jungle and Inspector Gadget.
Which Inspector Gadget?
Matthew Broderick?
Broderick.
Okay.
So I decided to bring that up because I know you want to know as much as you can about Memoirs of the Invisible Man.
I'm pretty sure he took that to finish off a contractor for the money.
February 24th, the only movie I'm going to mention that came out, and I'm mentioning this solely for Chad, that is when The Toxic Avenger Part 2 was unleashed upon the world.
That makes sense.
Yeah, there was a few independent films that were straight to VHS. I guess they weren't straight to VHS. I guess they did find a few theaters that came out. That 1989 was a good year,
Okay. What's next?
which I will talk to. And
I'm going to skip some of the movies that nobody really knows about anymore. A big hit that came out, we're in March now, Lean on Me.
Yeah, I got Lean on Me on here is in the top 20, I think.
It was a big hit. Matter of fact,
In fact, number 9 is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Lean on Me was number 1 at the box office for 2 straight weeks before it was unseated by Chevy Chase.
Flesh Lives.
Flesh Lives. But yeah, I want to bring up Lean on Me because I think that was a big movie. And again, one that people quote sometimes without knowing it. And you got the Morgan Freeman and the Tony Todd. I just want to bring up Tony Todd.
Yeah, I can never remember Tony Todd in it, and I'm sure he is, but I haven't seen it in years.
He's listed last in the credits, so that should tell you the level of the role. On March 10th, there were no other major films that opened because they were sure that this film, the next film I'm going to say, was going to be a hit. So they backed off of that weekend. This film bombed horribly. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
I can't believe The Adventures of Baron Munchausen didn't have any competition and still tanked.
Yeah.
It did, and that's what because I was looking at the release dates, and literally March 3rd, 4 films came out. Lean on Me being the one most people remember. Though John Milius's Farewell to the King also came out again,
Which is another Nick Nolte film. I've seen it as well. It's actually not a bad movie.
But yeah, you get
He's a white guy in the jungle.
The 10th is the Adventures of Baron Munchausen was the only major.
Which
release.
You want to talk about it?
No, I mean
we could probably do a whole episode on Terry Gilliam.
Terry Gilliam and Baron Munchausen. So, The Adventures of Baron Munchausen for me personally is probably in one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Period.
I would have thought top 5.
It probably is the top 5. But I actually didn't discover it in 1989. I didn't discover Baron Munchausen till late 90s. And it's just an amazing film. If you haven't seen it, you need to go check it. I believe it was his second film. Jabberwocky was being his first.
Brazil.
Fourth. It'd be his
Sorry,
fourth.
Brazil. I forgot about Brazil.
Because he considers it part of his trilogy of imagination. It's the last film in his trilogy of imagination.
It's an amazing piece of fantasy. I highly recommend, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Uma Thurman and a young Uma Thurman's in it.
Robin Williams.
We could sit. We're trying to barrel through the whole year, so I'm not going to go.
And we're going to go a little quicker. But we're going to spend some more time in the summer.
But they've re-released Baron Munchausen and gave it a proper release on DVD. And the story of what Terry Gilliam had to go through to get that movie made is fantastic.
It did go way over budget though, because they gave him $23 million and it went up to 48.
Well, at one point, some guy was the producer was holding the film hostage.
Yeah, it made $8 million.
They couldn't get it out.
Well, it wouldn't be the last time Terry G would go through that either.
And I don't think when it was released, it got much of it didn't get much of a marketing campaign for its release, which is why it tanked.
It's and I enjoyed the film actually. I think anytime you get pythons together, I'm probably going to enjoy it though.
Yeah, that's true.
So moving ahead quicker, I'll jump forward on the next weekend. We got one of Joe's favorite films, Police Academy 6.
City Under
did not rank it well at the box office. Wasn't number 1 that weekend or nothing.
What was number 1?
Number 1 was still Lean on Me.
Okay. I was wondering when Look Who's Talking. I thought Look Who's Talking came around that same time.
We're coming up on it.
Okay, I was close.
Moving forward, March 17th, we get Fletch Lives. Fletch Lives, not as popular as Fletch for good reason.
But some people do like it a lot. It's very quotable too.
Number 1 at the box office for 2 straight weeks, which was kind of weird for this early in the year. Usually movies go peak and then drop quickly. So, moving on quicker, Leviathan is the 17th. Opens.
Woo! And can I give a shout out? Jed and I rewatched this. Didn't we watch this together a while back?
A while back, but not recently.
Well, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
old. I still like it.
Yeah.
I can't not like it. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
I like the Burbs better than Leviathan, so
The monster don't make a lot of sense.
no, nothing about it.
But it's a cool idea with a great cast.
And then watching Daniel Stern slowly devolve into what he becomes.
Boy, it sure is hot.
By the
Are we
way,
talking about Home Alone?
No.
it opened
Daniel
against
Stern.
it opened against Rooftops, and Rooftops is only relevant for one reason.
I don't even know what that is.
It was a crime and dance film.
Really.
It's relevant only because it is the last theatrical motion picture directed by Robert Wise.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
And it was his second film about poor New Yorkers that involved dance.
Yeah, the other one was something no one ever heard of. Mean Streets?
Yeah, never going to be remade or nothing. I wouldn't even bring it up.
No, I wouldn't bring it up.
Real quick, finishing out March, we get 976 Evil, directed by
Robert Englund.
Yep.
Starring Stephen Jeffries from Friday Night. Evil Ed.
with a screenplay by Brian Hilton.
Who would shoot on the fame, not only do that one, he actually wrote, we got credit for writing Nightmare on Elm Street 4, but you'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Troop Beverly Hills.
Where shopping is
Our greatest skill.
There you go.
And let's not forget the most important part about Troop Beverly Hills. It introduced me to Carla Gugino. So
Also has
one of the kids in that?
she's the one whose parents don't show up for her birthday, and they have the birthday party on the yacht.
I don't remember.
also has Jenny Lewis in it, which if you're a fan of Rilo Kiley, she went on to be.
No. Carla Gugino.
Mm.
That's enough.
Next.
How dare you forget Willie Garson? I don't know. You got to mention Heathers. Heathers closes out March.
Yeah, Heathers is another cult film. Back to Christian Slater. It was directed
And
by
Glenn Shaddix.
what is that guy's name? He made a movie I really like called The Truth About Cats and Dogs.
Richard Baskin.
Huh?
Richard Baskin.
Richard Baskin.
Is that who directed it?
That's who James is
Richard
saying
Baskin
directed it.
directed it. He also was the writer of several songs for Nashville by Robert Altman. Just a
Huh. No,
Richard Baskin.
that doesn't sound right.
Continue
I'm
on.
not going to argue with him
Set
now.
up. It's Michael Lehman.
It's Michael Lehman, yeah. Because Michael
Michael
Lehman
I
also
looked at the wrong line. I'm sorry. I've got my
You
notes. up.
bastard.
told you it was wrong. I don't care if he's looking at a computer. Anyway,
I
I'm
trusted
sorry.
you.
I'm
Michael
sorry.
Lehman directed one of
now
your
who?
favorite cult classic films.
What's that?
Hudson Hawk.
Ooh, I love
Who before this started said, "Hey James, can you find a list?" I looked at the
Meet
wrong line.
Applegates. All right, next.
Okay, we get into April, and April has some of the films that people still love to this day. And I'm of course going to start with Chad's all-time favorite film. He'll deny it, but let's go ahead and lay it on the line. Cyborg with Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh.
No, but actually two films open side by side, and I didn't know these opened at the same time. One of them's remembered, the other's remembered by people like me. The one that's remembered, Major League.
Yeah.
Yes.
You lollygag.
It brought it up. We brought it up in our sports movie episode.
The other one is Dream Team opened against that, and nobody remembers Dream Team, but I love
Nobody remembers Dream Team. That's funny that they both entered. That
Yeah.
they both came out. I didn't know that.
That was
Yeah.
brought up on another former episode of
Yeah,
ours.
yeah.
So watch those previous episodes.
Going on because this
Don't
one's
ask us
still-
what they are because this is like episode 140.
Just watch them all again, folks.
Watch them all again.
Dream Team was in our Hidden Gems episode.
Yeah, Major League was not.
No.
So Major League and Dream Team. And by the way, let me see. Did any of those actually peak at number one? Major League was number one for 2 straight weeks.
Yeah.
Dream Team was not. Oddly enough, because Major League was number one for 2 straight weeks, Disorganized Crime and Say Anything never got a chance.
Do you see what we're saying here? Once again, 89, disorganized crime we just talked about 3 weeks ago.
Yep. I mean, 1989. What can we say? Good year. Mwah.
And Say Anything is a Cameron Crowe film. It's his directorial debut. He'd written a book. He wrote several different things. That's his directorial debut, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And everybody remembers In your eyes, the light, the heat.
The only problem
Your
is
eyes, whatever.
it
I can't compete.
the only problem with that is that's the only good scene in that movie.
I disagree. It
Yeah.
also has Fraser's dad in it, who's an excellent character actor.
So
You remember Fraser's dad's name's John something.
Mahoney.
John Mahoney. Yeah, John
Mahoney.
Mahoney. He's a great character actor. Excellent.
and I know what y'all are thinking. James has already mentioned one Jean-Claude Van Damme movie this month. How could there be two? Well, there was. Kickboxer came out the same month.
What? Who in the hell has
I
the
know.
talent to do Cyborg and Kickboxer in the same
That
movie?
would imply that Canon Films was making films very, very quickly to get two films out with the same actor in the same month. Do you think Canon was worried about film quality?
No, I watch Electric Boogaloo. Moving right along.
Hi,
April
Nick.
21st is a big day in history because the number one movie for this weekend and the next 2 weekends that followed it would be Pet Sematary,
Which was a huge hit.
which was a huge hit. But do you know what it overshadowed? I didn't know it overshadowed this film that most people at least quote or quote indirectly.
What?
Field of Dreams. If you build it.
So it came out the same time, Field of Dreams?
Same weekend, April 21st. The films that came out April 21st were Pet Sematary, Field of Dreams, Red
You can
Scorpion.
put a gun to my head. There's no way I would have said that.
What was the third movie you said?
Red Scorpion, See You in the Morning, Speed Zone, and another one that some people have a weird obsession with, Teen Witch.
Yeah.
Uh,
So can I give a shout out to Speed Zone? Speed Zone is an obscure film. It's technically Cannonball Run 3. It's got John Candy in it. It's got Donna Douglas, who is Mrs. Dan Aykroyd. Several other
Peter
actors
Boyle.
made by, what'd you say?
Peter Boyle, Tom Smothers,
It's got
Carl
several-
Lewis,
yeah.
Brooke Shields, Dick Sargent.
It's got a ton of people in it. It's not a good movie. Actually, it's got Lee Van Cleef is in a cameo in it at the beginning, skipping rocks with his grandson. However, if you're in the movies and you're into Cannonball Run, check out Speed Zone. And there's an interesting story behind it. So keep going for another day.
The 28th, there's no major films that most people talk about that came out the 28th of April, but I want to bring it up because one film that did come out was Scandal by Miramax.
Uh-huh.
And the reason I bring it up is the cast on it is phenomenal. John Hurt, Ian McKellen, Bridget Fonda, Britt Eklund, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if I've ever seen Scandal, but after seeing that cast, I'm interested in seeing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, jumping forward to May, I'm going to skip some of these because I want to make sure that Chad gets to talk about these two films that somehow, the studios didn't realize what they had. They opened these films as the only films that premiered May 12th. The epic box office battle between Earth Girls Are Easy, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. How can you do that? Those are two Oscar-worthy films that you open up and say, I can't.
I'll talk about See No Evil, Hear No Evil real quick if you'll do Earth Girls Are Easy.
yeah, okay.
Because I don't care for that one.
Well, I did it. So let's talk. But no, okay. So now we got to start with it. So I loved Earth Girls Are Easy as a child.
Yeah.
As Joe's experience with what movie did you say? The Burbs.
I don't think The Burbs is as shitty as Earth Girls Are Easy.
Hold
I just
on.
said it doesn't quite work now.
Let me. So late viewing of the Earth Girls Are Easy. Yeah, movie doesn't hold up.
It wasn't good to begin with.
No.
It has Jim Carrey,
I
Damon
love-
Wayans.
It was an amazing cast. Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey,
Downtown
Damon
Julie Brown.
Wayans, Downtown Julie Brains,
Brains.
and
Michael
Michael
McKean.
McKean as the pool man.
Okay, it's
Charlie
not a
Rocket.
good movie.
No, it's not a good movie.
See No Evil, Hear No Evil was the third pairing. Is it the third or fourth? No, it's the third of Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor.
Probably the last.
It has a couple of good sight gags.
Probably the last great comedic duo in movie history. Wouldn't you think?
I don't know. That's a
With the exception of
has
their
there been
more
a good
recent
comedic
film,
duo
I
since?
would
I'm sure if I thought about
I
it.
mean,
for a few
there was
minutes.
Mathau and Mathau and
Lemon.
Lemon, but that
I'm
was
going to have to make an argument, Chad, and you all may hate me because especially with their most recent effort. But I'm actually going to argue John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell.
Ferrell. You're right.
I don't know that I'd get on board with that. As much as I like Talladega Nights,
Step Brothers?
Step Brothers doesn't quite do it for me most of the time.
But I
It's
think-
quotable as hell.
Well, I was going to say, and I think that's it. And the reason I say those two together is, I like John C. Reilly regardless. Actually, I was watching Chicago recently, and I'm like, man, John C. Reilly in a musical just works.
Oh, he's really good in that.
That being said, the difference being, I think Will Ferrell is stronger with John C. Reilly than he is on his own. I'm going to be the guy that says that. There you go.
Okay.
Anyway,
Next weekend. I can't believe that came out in early May.
Yeah,
I'm going to skip every other film because it doesn't matter, Joe, because
No.
you know what May 19th brought us, right? May 19th.
It was Star Trek 5.
By the way, See No Evil, Hear No Evil was #1 at the box office for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But the movie that premiered and that would change cinema as we know it, that came out May 19th, is of course the epic film Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. Oh, by the way, the villain is a guy who went on to do American. What's that movie with Annette Bening?
American President?
No,
No. What?
where she's got the husband and he eventually gets shot and 2 kids and Beautiful America. What's it called?
Oh, shit.
American
American
Beauty?
Beauty.
American Beauty. Yeah, what was that guy's name in it?
I don't know.
We don't talk about him anymore.
No.
Ever since he molested them
Oh,
people.
yeah. You should also mention the fact that he was in See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
That's what I was going.
Oh.
He's the villain.
Yeah,
He's
no.
one of the villains.
I almost
So
made
is
that-
Anthony Zerbe.
Yeah, I was.
By the way, no, you mentioned you're talking
I
about
know
Kevin
Anthony Zerbe.
Spacey.
He's
You know
in
how
it.
many
Yeah.
movie-
He's blind,
Kevin-
right? What'd you say?
You know how many movie Kevin Spacey's was in that was already on this list? Did that
Well-
man sleep in '89?
No.
He
He's
was
an actor
all
for a
over
long
the
time.
Yeah, he was a legitimate working actor before Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's all over the place. Just look at all the movies. Now, some of them he filmed earlier, obviously, but '89 he did a ton of films. So we get Roadhouse, but
And
Roadhouse,
then we don't really need anything. Let's stop right
Yeah,
there. We're
we're
good.
no,
Roadhouse.
I can't let you do that because Roadhouse never got to #1 because they
Well, that's a
premiered-
bunch of horse shit. Next to Ken, Knock It Out.
No, they premiered a little film that opened middle of the week for the 4-day weekend that was coming up that year. And it was about a guy in a fedora, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Okay, so if you go through the rankers, what's #1 for that year?
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
I saw it that weekend.
I didn't see Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade until
Last week.
Why?
I just never got to. I wasn't. This was one of these same Star Wars stories that I've said multiple times on this episode. I wasn't introduced to Indiana Jones until I was a teenager.
No, but he loved Quartermain.
No, I didn't.
Either fun.
I
night.
think they
like-
should have got a bigger laugh out there somewhere.
I preferred the Gentle Grace. That is Firewalker.
I like Firewalker as a kid quite a bit, actually.
I prefer the Quartermain movies. I'll say that. I don't
What's
care.
funny is I've met 2 people from Firewalker,
Okay, Joe. So
Sonny
Now
Landon
following-
and Chuck
But
Norris.
not Luke Gossett.
I never got messed out on Luke Gossett. What'd you say?
is he still alive? Isn't Luke
Yeah,
Gossett
Luke
still
Gossett
alive?
Jr. He's still active.
I think he
Then
beat
why
cancer.
you haven't necessarily missed out on him? You just haven't met him yet. Let's
He was
not
just in
bury
a
him.
movie with Tom Berenger about superheroes in a retirement home.
I think he really beat cancer like a couple years
Yeah.
ago, right? Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So Indiana Jones open, obviously huge.
Oh, he's
but they-
also in How. Oh shit. Never mind. Continue on.
It's a great. It's.
Hap and Leonard. He was in Hap and Leonard.
Can I
His
talk
great
about?
performance
Can I
in
talk
Hap
about
and-
Last Crusade? So
Yeah.
a lot of people love Raiders of the Lost Ark, of course, a classic film. A lot of people like Temple of Doom because of the darkness and what that people don't like about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Last Crusade pisses off some Indiana Jones fans. Why, James?
I don't know, Joe. Why? I don't know.
Well,
what
I thought we've talked about this before.
we have. I just want to make sure you.
where they've changed because it's mainly to do with supporting characters and how they made
Yeah,
them more
it's-
comical.
It
and
is
Tom-
Denholm Elliott's
Then
character.
Home Elliott, they made him and
Rice.
John Rice Davies comic relief, which they were not in the first.
No,
movie.
matter of fact, in the original, in Raiders,
Yeah,
Denholm Elliott's character has a line, "If I was younger, I'd go with you," implying that, I'm not saying Disney should do prequels, but if they let me write them, they should, about his character, because
Yeah.
it implies that he's done some stuff before.
it changes. It does. it
And then
didn't
you
bother
got the
me
guy
as
that
a
gets
child.
lost.
I
Yeah.
loved it. I thought it was. I remember seeing it in the theater with my mother. Like I said, I watched a lot of movies that summer. At the movies, I was lucky enough. But now looking back on it, I do see why Indiana Jones film fans do complain about that. Of course, the Crystal Skull came out and
I have
shut the
hope for
fuck
them.
up. They only make the 3.
Yeah.
I have hope for 5. No, you know, I'll be honest. I rewatched. I'm a huge Indiana Jones fan. Matter of fact, and I've said this before, I love Star Wars. Star Wars, however, didn't hit me when I was younger as hard as Indiana Jones did. I loved Indiana Jones from the first time I saw it. I love Star Wars too, but I was obsessed with Indiana Jones. And that being said, I rewatched Crystal Skull. It's probably been about 3 months ago because I sat down and I watched them all again because I just love those films. And I think the issue with Crystal Skull is it's an Indiana Jones film. Like, if you were just doing, we're going to explore this mythology, okay, fine. But it doesn't feel like an Indiana Jones film.
If it was on Saturday night on the Sci-Fi Channel, you'd be fine with it.
Yeah. The problem
And
is
it
you
was
put a
Antonio
character.
Sabata Jr.
Yeah, you put
You'd be
Lorenzo
fine with it.
Lamas. Lorenzo Lamas.
Right? You'd
Yeah.
be fine with it. The fact that it's an Indian, I get it what you're saying. Fine, yeah.
I watched it and I was like, if I ignore the other 3 movies, which I don't want to do because I love them, I can sit and say, oh, this is entertaining. But I'm like, oh, Indy, come on. Anyway, Joe, real quick, for the last movie that opened, so Indiana Jones opens on a Wednesday. Friday, they still decide to put out another movie to compete against it. Joe, who is the most famous stuntman that became a film director that we've talked about before?
Hal Needham.
You know who we've never talked about?
No.
Buddy Van Horn.
What
Buddy
movie
Van
is it?
Horn, for those of you that don't know, was Clint Eastwood's stunt double, but he also directed 3 Clint Eastwood films. The ones that people tend to know is Any Which Way You Can and The Deadpool. But in 1989, he directed his final collaboration with Clint
Pink
Eastwood.
Cadillac.
Pink Cadillac.
Yeah, it's on the list. Chad and I were talking about. Chad's like, that's the one with Tim Robbins and Robin Williams.
No, that's
I was like, Cadillac Man. No, Pink
Yeah.
Cadillac was a dud. That's him and
Yep.
Bernadette Peters.
Yep.
That's actually not a terrible movie, but that's one of the forgotten Clint Eastwood films.
Yeah.
Not
So-
that it needs to be remembered, but it's not as bad as I think people remember it.
No, it's. I mean, it is. It's not. Even Clint Eastwood fans, if you say name your top 10, it don't make that list. But
Yeah.
it's not a terrible film. I want to bring it. So the June 2nd, we're in the summer now, right? Big summer films.
Yep.
And one of the films that came out on June 2nd has been quoted in English classrooms. It has been used to inspire teachers. And of course, I refer to No Holds Barred.
Tiny Wieners.
June 2nd, Hulk Hogan, Kurt Fuller, Joan Severance, and Tony Lister Jr. brings us
smell?
the Force. New Line Cinema and WWE Studios teamed up to give us that film.
That John Carpenter's talked about that before, of he's a wrestling fan, being a fan of Hulk, and that they just didn't cast him right.
No.
They didn't find the right roles for him.
I will say I don't know, Suburban Commando.
It's
not.
It's more fun.
It's more fun.
It's a better movie.
Yeah. So I'll just briefly talk about it because this is one of those
Like this
childhood
kid.
memories of mine. When No Holds Barred came out, my dad we actually got to go see WWF wrestling a few times live. They actually were able to somehow get the money to take us, and
Piggy's up.
yeah, pinkies up. But that was like one of my, and this is why Tiny Lister, who played Zeus, is one of my favorite actors, is just because I got to stand there right at the gate and watch him come in as Zeus.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was like, it's still ingrained in my brain.
Your 8-year-old mind
9-year-old.
exploded.
No, well, I guess I was 8. It wasn't July yet.
Why do I know that better than you?
I don't know. But no, so that's No
Honky
Holds
Tonk Man
Barred.
could have taken them all.
Oh, we also forgot another great line
What?
from No Holds Barred.
What?
Stay away from me, you jackass! Right before he inexplicably gently leans
into the television equipment, and it gets electrocuted.
I don't remember the actor's name, but he was the villain.
Oh,
And of course, he's the villain in a
he-
movie we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Yes.
In the same summer, he pissed off the Hulkster, and we'll talk about him in a
A
minute.
minute. We're talking about 1989. I don't know if we'll ever talk about No Holds Barred again. So I just wanted to share that little moment.
Maybe we
We
should
should run out of ideas and
best
we
Hulk
start
Hogan
talking about the greatest wrestling movies.
Oh man.
Oh man, you have to have some of the Rock movies in it. If you smell indeed what the Rock has been prepared.
Run down best rock movie.
It's a heck of a lot of fun. So No Hold Barred did open against Dead Poets Society, which was obviously is what I was originally going to refer to.
Oh,
But
Captain, my Captain. I tell you, Dead Poets
never
Society
number one
still
at the
holds
box
up.
office.
No.
What was number one at the box office that weekend?
Indiana Jones held on.
Oh,
to
okay.
something.
Really? Hulk Hogan didn't dethrone him?
No, but listen to what else didn't dethrone him, because I was looking at this list. One of the best films that the Hemdale Film Corporation ever put out came out that weekend, and I refer, of course, to the epic Nick Cage early effort of Vampire's Kiss.
Yes. Yeah.
That opened against Scenes from the Class Struggle on Beverly Hills by directed
Paul
by Paul
Bartel.
Bartel.
Yeah.
And it also was
I've seen
against
all these.
Renegades with
Lou Diamond
Lou
Phillips.
Diamond Phillips. That was a loaded weekend for B movies.
Wow.
Oddly enough, I've seen everything, but I'm sure I've seen Renegades, but I don't have recollection
I
of
have
that.
seen Renegades.
So we.
I
we
was
moved-
11-year-old me. I know I saw that later that summer when it finally came out on video or whatever. Watching class scenes from the class struggle of Beverly Hills,
no.
directed by Paul Bartel. I
With
did
Wallace
not need to see that at 10
No.
or 11. What'd you say?
with Wallace Shawn.
Yeah, Wallace Shawn.
Anytime I give a shout out to Wallace Shawn, I do.
Inconceivable.
He's the Grand Nagus, sir.
Yeah, he is.
Anyway, so what? So Indiana Jones still held on, beat all that. What knocked Indiana Jones out of number one?
Tell us.
I'm going to think it's
It's-
Ghostbusters 2.
No, sir. It's the reason they're putting seatbelts in movie theaters.
Star Trek
sir.
5.
Star Trek 5. We've already talked about Star Trek 5 last week. Joe,
Skip.
now, what, knowing how epic Star Trek 5 is,
Yes.
what possibly could have knocked it out that opened the next weekend?
Ghostbusters 2.
Ghostbusters 2.
I knew it was
Which
June.
starred the villain from No Holds Barred.
Within 4 weeks, he was the villain in No Holds Barred. and
The most
Ghostbusters.
hated man in America.
Have you read anything about that actor? His actual history? Like he was a bodybuilder and all that stuff?
No.
Really?
Read
He
his
was a
history.
bodybuilder?
He was a boxer, actually. Read his history. He was a terrible human being.
So I want to eventually do a Ghostbusters episode.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
I think we need to do that in 2020 for obvious reasons.
for obvious reasons. One of the things I want to defend real quick. I was so excited, man. Ghostbusters.
Kurt
is
Fuller?
Kurt Fuller.
Yeah. Who was also in Supernatural.
And he's actually an
I
autofocus,
was
which is a
talking
really
about
good
Kurt
movie
Fuller. I was talking
about.
about the Vigo guy. Sorry.
Well, James.
I was talking about the Vigo guy. Never mind.
Okay.
No. I was
Ghostbusters
talking about
2.
Kurt Fuller.
Oh,
The I was so excited. The one thing people, if they don't know us, should know is we have a lot in common, but we don't really agree on everything. But the one thing is Ghostbusters shaped our childhoods.
Yes.
Correct?
Right.
And we have a deep attachment to it.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yep.
The first, so putting this in perspective, and Joe and Chad both know this, but when I got my first real job, where I met Joe, when I graduated, the first thing that I did when I got my first paycheck, and I think I was making $19,000 a year, but I was convinced I was winning. The first luxury item I bought myself was a custom-made Ghostbusters uniform.
Which you still have.
I still wear it. I went trick-or-treating with my kids in it. And every year, by the way, I have people stop me and ask for pictures and this year, by the way, I was like, this is both cool and freaky. A car pulled up next to me and was just idling on the corner. And he never left the corner. And he was goofing off with his stereo. I couldn't figure out what he was doing. And then all of a sudden, he rolled down his windows and blared the Ghostbusters theme and followed me down the sidewalk with my kids while I was trick-or-treating. And I was like, this is both really, really cool and really, really creepy. But it was awesome because everybody all of a sudden, and then people started to do the dance, and it lasted 2 minutes. But it was awesome for those 2 minutes. And I still think that's the power of Ghostbusters.
So yeah, Ghostbusters 2 gets ripped on, saying it's a piss poor sequel. As a child, and still to this day, I have a fondness for Ghostbusters 2.
I don't think it's as bad as people say.
No,
it
it's
is.
not.
My problem now, looking back on it, because I loved it as a kid.
No, when it came out and I saw it in the theater, I walked away and I was just like, I want to go see it again immediately.
Yeah. My problem is it doesn't necessarily look like Ghostbusters.
No.
Considering it was just 5 years later, it doesn't
Right.
even look like it was shot like Ghostbusters.
No, it's the best
it looks
way-
more like an 80s movie than Ghostbusters does.
Yeah. Well, see, I thought Ghostbusters 2 was cleaner. There was a grittiness to Ghostbusters 1.
But I think that grit worked for some reason for me.
It's
Yeah.
darker.
Yes.
Ghostbusters is darker than Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just shot darker. Anyway, I don't think it's as bad as people say it is.
No.
It was not as it was a huge hit. Still made over $100 million, but
Yeah.
it was just not
Oh,
the hit that Ghostbusters.
And that's actually what I was going to say. So Ghostbusters, so Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade comes out, becomes the biggest weekend of all time, surpassing Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom 4-day Memorial Weekend of $33.9 million. Now, again, remember, this is the 80s. We're not to the $100 million weekend yet. That being said, Ghostbusters 2 came out and immediately smacked that record down. When Ghostbusters 2 came out, it was a huge hit. In 3 days, it made $29 million, which surpassed because Indiana Jones did it over 4 days for Memorial Day weekend.
yeah.
Per day on Ghostbusters 2 knocked the record out of Indiana Jones.
But the marketing campaign for Ghostbusters 2 was insane.
Dude, I had
Hardee's
the Hardee's Cup. Hardee's.
I had the Hardee's cups, the Hardee's little toy
that made
yeah.
the sounds. I had all of it. And I wish I actually still have the cups. I should have brought the cups
Yeah.
over
I had all that stuff, and I don't.
but we're not done with huge marketing campaigns for that summer and fast food, are we?
No, because Joe, Ghostbusters, despite being a hit, only lasted 1 week because what film would have knocked Ghostbusters flat?
You want to say it? I got the last one. You know this one.
Sure. Batman.
No, Robin.
Oh,
Where does he get these
Wonderful.
so
toys.
so
This
not
movie of
so-
summer quotes, folks.
So
I'm
here's the
serious.
cool thing about 19. I'm going to briefly jump back in time to 1988.
89,
No, 1988.
99.
The highest grossing film of 1988 in terms of budget was Who Framed. No, wait, that was 1990, wasn't it? Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Or was that in 88?
was
Wasn't it?
88.
So Who Framed Roger Rabbit was the highest highest budget the cost to make. The very next year, Batman comes out, and now it is now the most costly movie ever made after Roger Rabbit. So that's, you start to see the big budget evolution starting from 1988 to 1989's Batman, and then it never looked back.
And you have Batmania during this time. I mean,
Yeah.
it was marketed everywhere. There were 14 different card sets for Tops and Top subsidiaries. And
Oh, and you had Prince songs on the effing soundtrack.
Yeah, because I mean, there was, and there's a whole story about the whole merchandising of Batman, and so when Batman was released, I think they had 14 companies making the apparel to be sold, and then when Batman Returns, their whole gimmick was, okay, we did this with Batman, let's take it back. So even then, like they only leased merchandising to 2 companies, and when Batman Returns, because they blew up Batman so much.
Yeah.
And so, again, to put this in perspective about how quick the summer of '89 escalated, I've already said Indiana Jones broke the record. Ghostbusters 2 comes out, takes the record away from Indiana Jones. Batman comes out 1 week later and just demolishes it. $40 million opening weekend in the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cemented the career of Tim Burton. People think it's Beetlejuice, and don't get me wrong, Beetlejuice was some people argue maybe his most original film, but
But
it was a huge hit. But it's never.
even the
It's not
second
Batman.
weekend, the second weekend of Batman would have been, had it not been for the first weekend, the second weekend would have been the record holder. It made another 30-some million the second weekend. So it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and also too, being a kid, we didn't have the superhero movies, and this is like, back in the day, we didn't have.
No, Kevin Smith has talked about it.
Yeah, we didn't have superhero films. We had.
I
we had
watched
Superman.
I watched that crappy J.D. Salinger's son, clear shielded crap Captain America, and we were lucky to have it.
Yeah,
Seriously, and not to sound like, but Chad's right. the comic films that did exist were no budget, cheaply made, and we were just ecstatic to have something, even though usually they didn't follow any of the origin stories. They were just all over the place.
Yeah, and so then comes Batman, and I mean it just changes the ball. I mean, now granted,
Had nothing to do with the comics,
no, it had nothing to do with the comics. Batman,
other than to look like The Dark Knight Returns.
right?
Well, and I mean, the basic origin of his dad and mom died.
That's it, right?
But I mean, the quote unquote origin given to the Joker is not. He wasn't Joe Chill. He wasn't. Anyway. By the way,
this was one of 2 comic book movies that came out in 1989.
do you know what opened opposite Batman that went on to also spawn several sequels and follow-ups?
No.
Do tell.
It's one of the greatest films that stars both Matt Frewer, who is an underrated Sherlock Holmes. I don't care what people say.
He's an underrated character actor, that's for sure.
He
And
carried National
Right.
Lampoon Senior Trip.
Rick Moranis. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. came
Kids.
out that
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
I saw that in the theater too. Oh my god!
I saw the Burbs.
I'm now recollecting about it. No shit, they must have just took me every fucking weekend.
Yeah, they probably did. Well, we're gonna throw Joe in the theater so we can go talk to our attorneys about who's getting blood.
No, they weren't fucking. That's what you're about to
No.
say.
No, it
No,
wasn't.
Well, at least not mom. Ah!
Hold on. They had to throw Joe in the movie theater so they could go talk to their attorneys, which I imagine went something like this. No, I don't want him. You take it.
Yeah, damn it, Joe. You beat me to it. No.
Oh, it would be so
that's
funny if it
terrible.
wasn't so true.
Well, why
I
did you
saw,
bring
I saw Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at the drive-in theater with it was a double of the Burbs and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
I didn't know that came out the same weekend as Batman.
Batman.
It was a
I
huge
Which-
hit. That
It was
another
also a
big
hit. It was
That was
also.
a-
That's what I mean. It's
That was originally supposed to be directed by Stuart Gordon.
Wow.
Yep.
so.
Gotta
So
get
Batman
reanimated.
opened opposite that. Batman obviously owns its second week, but there's movies that come out the next week that even though they never get number one because of Batman are pretty historically significant. Specifically, Do the Right Thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1989, Spike Lee,
Spike Lee's best film in my opinion.
and the cast on that: Ozzie Davis,
Danny Aiello.
Ruby Dee,
Yeah,
John Turturro.
John Turturro.
But also covered up by Batman is, of course, the 4th greatest film in Pat Morita's arsenal, Karate Kid 3.
Kid Part 3.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Collision Course.
So
Have we not got to? I guess it's in July. We get to Lethal Weapon 2. Sorry.
I was going to say July 5th, opening on a Wednesday for some reason, is Weekend at Bernie's. But Weekend at Bernie's, when it gets to the Friday, gets buried by Lethal Weapon 2.
2.
And
Lumatic
Immunity.
I did not know Lethal Weapon 2 was as big as it was.
It's a huge hit. It's
I'm-
bigger than the first one.
That's why we got
It
number
was
3.
number one at the box office, not Batman out. But not only did it knock Batman out, it was number one at the box office for 3 straight weeks. It owned July. The weekend of July 9th, 16th, and 23rd, the number one movie at the box office was Lethal Weapon.
Lethal Weapon 2 is a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a great sequel when it comes to sequels. And this
Yeah.
this obviously is a summer of sequels. Lethal Weapon 2 is a great sequel. Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2. But I think people forget, if you actually look at the box office, James, Lethal Weapon 2 made more money than Lethal Weapon.
It was huge.
Shane Black
That's
was the
what I think
original
about-
screenwriter, and they actually had to fire him because he killed off Riggs
Oh, really?
in his draft. And they couldn't have.
Yeah.
They weren't going to do
We
that.
got to have sequels.
Yeah.
By the way, Anthony Zerbe has been in a couple films that we talked about, and I've said Zerbe, please don't send me hate mail. Which
He
actually
did
leads me
Lethal
to the
Weapon
next film, which did not unseat Lethal Weapon. I said Lethal Weapon held on for 3 weeks, but there's 2 films that came out in the 14 that have a place in cinema history for different reasons. When Harry Met Sally
Yep.
Yep.
came out the 14th of July. Again, never was number one, but did okay for itself.
But just because we've talked a lot of genre films, I want to say, not only directed by Rob Reiner, probably one of the top 2, at least in the top 3 best romantic comedies ever made.
Oh, bar none. Bar
Well,
none.
written by Nora Ephron too. I mean,
Yeah, the
talk
film
about
is a
director,
good story for
that
me.
writing
Harry Met
is-
Sally, and I need to think of the third one.
She's got mail. You pansy.
I actually like She's Got Mail, or He's Got Mail, or You've Got Mail.
You've got mail.
It's You've Got Mail.
Yeah.
Pattern bald
By
mail.
the way,
he's got bald mail. Did I say she's got bald mail?
She's got bald mail.
Today's
bald-
the dip. She's got bald mail.
by the way,
I'll have what bald mail is having.
the other movie that came out that weekend,
Yeah.
which starred Wayne Newton and Benicio del Toro.
I know exactly what it is. You know why? Because guess who saw it in the theater with his mommy? Because
Dad?
she's a huge. Dun, 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 dun.
Hey, can I take a pause here? We probably need to do a Bond episode eventually.
We do, and that's an unappreciated Bond film.
I
Which
know
one
a
is
lot of
this?
people hate
License
Timothy
to Kill.
Dalton.
Wait, hold on. Okay, so I'm not the big Timothy Dalton. Timothy Dalton's a good Bond, but his Bond movies were kind of made for TV movie-ish.
The Living Daylights I always found boring, but I really like License to Kill.
Is License to
Well-
Kill the one where they feed the guy to the shark?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The guy that's played by Jeffrey Wright now.
I think that's the
They kill
thing.
Felix Leiter.
And it's the same argument.
they
I
were
make
killing-
about Joker.
They
They
fed his
didn't-
wife. They killed his wife. I
Maybe,
can't remember.
maybe, but Felix survived
Yeah, Felix
being
is
half
crippled up,
eaten
but-
by a fucking shark.
and then comes
Half
back
eaten?
later.
Let's just,
Have you ever seen Jaws 2 where Quinn comes back?
No, how about Jaws 3 where Mario Van Peebles comes? No, Jaws 4 where Mario Van Peebles comes back after being swallowed fucking whole.
And the shark explodes.
No, seriously. They hold him in a pool of water and let the whole lower half of him get eaten by a shark. And he's not only does he live, he still has his legs.
To quote another very quotable film, does my cock still work?
FDR.
FDR, American Badass.
But I wanted to bring up License to Kill because it is part of the Bond franchise. It is immortalized. But that being said, the people don't like Timothy Dalton. I honestly think, and it's, like I said, it's the argument I make for the Joker too. People want to argue, well, which was the best Joker? They're always of the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I honestly think Timothy Dalton owned the 80s Bond. Roger Moore had gotten too old and jokey.
Yeah.
But the 70s was a jokey period. You could have a jokey Bond. We needed the 80s were dark, and we needed.
Well, I was getting towards it, yeah,
No,
because
I'm not
you
arguing.
had Roger Moore for the first part of the day. We need to go over this in a
Yeah.
whole.
We're doing
Yeah.
a Bond episode. James, what came next?
The film that actually in screen testing was testing bigger than Batman,
You know what this is?
No.
starring, of course, the great Billy Barty.
Oh God.
Starring.
He's in it. He's in it. UHF. And by the way, I wanted to talk about UHF. So if you'll humor me, I know.
I really thought he was going Masters of the Universe.
That'd be
I
fun.
know.
Mom did not take me to see UHF that summer. Damn it! I had to see License to Kill.
Did you? There's an oral history that was done by
Yeah,
AV
oral.
Club about UHF, and they got together Weird Al. They got together Jay Levy, who was Weird Al's agent but co-wrote the film with him, and the producer Gene Kirkwood.
Mhm.
By the way, Gene Kirkwood. Do you know what else he picked this movie up? This is actually a quote from him. I wanted to get involved with this movie because I was producing Ironweed, and it was depressing the daylights out of me.
That's with Jack
So-
Nicholson, right?
Yeah, with Meryl Streep.
Yeah.
And he said it's a good film, but it's very heavy, and I needed something to make me laugh. New Line is the one that originally approached Weird Al. So they had started bouncing this idea around in 1985. Weird Al's second album came out, was a huge hit, and people were like, oh, he's hilarious. Let's just cast him in something. New Line approached them, said, yeah, you should totally do a movie. Him and Jay Levy wrote the movie. Now, the funny part about this is it connects to so many other things that we love that I didn't know about. It was originally, so Gene Kirkwood produced Ironweed and Rocky. He was one of the original producers for Rocky that gave Stallone some money. New Line wanted them to make it. The New Line saw the script and went, no. And they talk about that. New Line wanted them to just do nonstop parodies and have it be kind of like Kentucky Fried Movie.
And they would get their wish later with Loaded Weapon 1. Yeah.
And so
Which is on Netflix. Stream it.
And
Definitely.
Kirkwood read the script, loved
Would
it,
you like to buy some cookies?
ended up
That's
going
what
to
you're quoting.
Orion. Orion looked at Kirkwood and said, "Listen, if you can get them to do this movie for $5 million or less, you'll do it." Weird Al tells the story that they met him for lunch, him and Jay Levy, and he sat down and he said, "They're going to give you $5 million. If you can do it $5 million or less, we'll give you the money." Weird Al and Jay Levy both said, "Sure, yeah, that's great." Walked out going, "He's not going to do it. It's never actually come together." 3 weeks later, they were filming. All right, and then they talked about the casting. Michael Richards had Bell's palsy, and they just thought that made him inherently funnier. But Weird Al loved him from Fridays,
which was the spinoff of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, the famous, and it's mostly famous for Andy Kaufman getting the crap kicked out of him live on television.
Yeah.
which is dramatized in Man on the Moon.
Moon, yeah. With Norm
Kirkwood,
Macdonald as Michael Richards.
Richards.
Because why not?
I'm assuming Michael Richards didn't want to talk about it or do the scene.
Yeah.
Kirkwood was well known. He was approached at the time with people saying, "Why would you produce a film with Weird Al in it?" And his actual response basically said, "Listen, I'm the one that picked this unknown fellow Mickey Rourke for the Pope of Greenwich Village. I greenlit Rocky with this Sylvester Stallone unknown guy. This will work out." It bombed horribly, by the way. That being said, the other thing that I found interesting was Victoria Jackson, Saturday Night Live, is his semi-love interest. Do you know the actors that they were considering for that?
The love interest? I know they wanted Jerry Seinfeld in the movie and he turned them down, but I don't know about the love interest.
Jennifer Tilly and Ellen DeGeneres both auditioned. And Weird Al says, "I still have the footage." He said, "I've still got all the old VHS of the audition footage. I showed Ellen hers, and she was mortified." Anyway, the other thing is the casting of Kevin McCarthy, and I thought you all would appreciate this. They were talking about it, and they said that Kevin McCarthy's casting was, they said, we didn't know if he said, we can't remember if we tried to get Leslie Nielsen or not, but immediately the thought was, Leslie Nielsen is hilarious in Airplane, which is one of Weird Al's favorite movies. Why don't we get an actor like that might do a comedy? And they contacted Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy loved it. And they said it was one of the best. He told them when it was done, this is one of the best times I've ever had because I didn't have to have any socially redeeming characteristic. But you're right. Jerry Seinfeld was supposed to actually play Weird Al's friend. He was going to play Bob. And he turned it down. The other thing that I didn't know was Philo, the engineer, who was played by a soap opera actor whose name I'm blanking on. But that role was actually written for Joel Hodgson, who created Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Oh, yeah.
That was during the early days when they started working on this. Was the early days of Mystery Science Theater 3000, and Weird Al is friends with him in real life, and said that if you know anything about Joel Hodgson, when he was a stand-up comedian, he always built these weird props. So Weird Al said, when I was writing a TV network engineer or an engineer working at a station, I immediately thought of Joel Hodgson, and Joel turned it down. It was his to turn down, and he turned it down. He walked away from it. And in the interview that they did, the AV Club did this interview in 2015, they caught up with Joe Hodgson, and they said, "Do you regret turning it down?" And Joe Hodgson's exact line was, "Well, it wasn't a big hit, was it? I think it worked out okay." Mystery Science Theater 3000 probably did pay off better for him. But when they couldn't get Joe Hodgson, they had a somewhat well-known actor that was interested. But he read the script, and he goes, "I won't play the engineer, but I want to play the used car salesman." Crispin Glover turned down the role. Weird Al and him evidently had a pretty lengthy discussion because he came back and he was like, yeah, no, the engineer's not my role. I want to be the used car salesman. Well, we don't have you in mind for that. I will only do this film if I get to be the used car salesman. We do not have you in mind for that. And Crispin Glover says, "I'm walking away if I cannot be the used car salesman. Bye." So UHF, though, if you've never seen it, it parodied. And one of the things that they talk about is it too much of its time? And Jay Levy actually has the best response to that. Weird Al's parodies arguably have outlived a lot of the songs they parodied.
Some of them, yeah.
Jeopardy is probably not as well known today as his parody Jeopardy is.
Yeah.
And he uses that example going, so he said, it cuts both ways. If we would have done, some people said you should have done Casablanca and all those. So anyway, UHF. I know. I'll just never get a chance to talk. We're never going to do a Weird Al episode. Oh, we'll do Hulk Hogan, but don't Weird Al. Anyway.
No, we'll do it. We'll do a television station related episode.
Bonehead the
Lethal-
later years.
So Lethal Weapon, UHF comes out, does not unseat Lethal Weapon. Friday the 13th, Part 8.
Jason
Jason
Takes
Takes
Manhattan.
Comes out, does not unseat it. But a movie
I didn't know that came out in the summer.
Yeah.
the
I
movie
saw that in the
that
theater.
came out
Did you really?
Yes.
that finally
parents love you?
Apparently not.
unseats Lethal Weapon 2 is not The Burbs with Tom Hanks, but it's a Tom Hanks film.
Turner and Hooch. I
Turner
saw it in
and
the
Hooch.
theater.
Yep.
I saw that
Yeah.
and K9.
K9, we both agree, far superior.
I don't know that I agree.
Oh, you
What?
agree.
Spoiler
Agree.
alert. Spoiler alert. At least Turner and Hooch had the balls to kill the dog.
Yeah, that's true.
What? My mom
But you
always
know
made
what?
me turn
You
it
know what
off
happened?
5 minutes before the end.
Did I can't remember Turner Hooch. Did he actually get him to the vet?
Yeah, he dies there.
Okay.
Doesn't he get him? I thought he got him to a hospital because isn't there the line that we don't work on dogs? Or am I getting that confused with another cop dog movie?
No, I think it's something like that. But the dog dies.
Well, that's because they didn't work on dogs. They told him.
Them sons of bitches killed Hooch.
So Turner and Hooch comes out, does not hold the box office long because little Opie Cunningham has to direct a film that stars Rick Moranis and Steve Martin, Parenthood.
I loved Parenthood as a
Nice.
kid, and now it makes even more sense.
God, yeah, I love Parenthood.
Parenthood
Right.
was number one at the box
It's a
office.
different movie now if you have children.
It still tugs at it. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get me like it does when Hooch dies, but
I don't know. The whole
But
scene.
Parenthood eventually also got that TV series a decade and a half later.
never heard of it. Keep going.
No, just the whole evolution of Steve Martin's character, where he's dealing with this son who he knows is going to have issues, has issues, and he doesn't know how to deal with them. And then his father, who's like, an abusive prick.
He's not an abusive prick.
He is too.
I don't agree with that.
Well, anyway, and he's finally they don't get along.
They don't. No, he doesn't. And his father prefers his younger brother. I don't think he's
Right.
an abusive prick. Who's played by the great actor. I don't know the actor. Jason Robards.
From Amadeus, right? Is it-
Jason Robards plays his dad.
Yeah, but the
Tom Hulse
Tom Hulse
is
yeah,
the younger brother.
Yeah.
That film also, though, by the way, just FYI, if you were worried, wait, we only had Bill and Ted that starred Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves is also in Parenthood, don't forget.
Yes, he is.
Other movies would try to knock Parenthood out. Parenthood did stay number one at the box office for 2 weeks, despite the epic pairing of Sonny Landham and Sylvester Stallone for Lock Up. James
That's
Cameron.
not one of Stallone's best
No.
films.
Was this his start with Canon? I can't remember.
I think
It's
so.
Carlco Pictures, TriStar and Carlco. Carol, yeah, that.
Carlco, yeah.
Thank you. The Abyss comes out, does not unseat Parenthood.
The Abyss was a big budget film, and you got to remember, if you look at this in the timeline of James Cameron's career, it wasn't a huge bomb, but it was nowhere near as successful as Terminator and Aliens.
Yeah. The Abyss also competes with A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 that came out August 11th.
Okay, that makes sense.
So what finally unseats Parenthood?
And by the way, Nightmare on Elm Street 5 was not a huge hit either. That's because 4 before it was a huge hit. Actually made the most money. 5 is the downturn, and that's the reason why they decided to do 6 a year later. Was it 2 years later? No, it would have been a year, 2 years later, and kill off Freddy. Sorry. What was the down? What killed it?
Parenthood was killed by a movie that would hold the number one at the box office for 4 straight weeks. Uncle
Was it a
Buck.
mermaid?
Uncle Buck.
Uncle Buck. Saw that in the theater too. Yeah.
Which gave the world, didn't give the world, but he heavily featured a certain Mr. Culkin.
I didn't know that it would hold the box office for 4 weeks.
4 weeks. Now,
I didn't know it was
So-
that big of a hit.
Me neither.
so to put it what it was up against, though, and this may help you,
Especially because of how it's held up. It's not really considered.
No, I don't think people talk about it as much
No.
as a John Hughes film.
to put what it's up against. So that came out August 16th.
It did get that horrible TV version.
Yeah.
Kevin Meaney. I dislike Kevin Meaney. I mean,
You
that's
put
not
your
a-
eye out.
Anyway,
God
you were
bless
saying.
Kevin Meaney. Rest in peace, Kevin Meaney.
Yeah.
The films that came up against it after Helmdale Film Corporation had that great hit with Vampire's Kiss. They tried Blood Red
Yeah.
with Eric Roberts. So this is probably why Uncle Buck held on. You have Blood Red, Casualties of War,
Yeah.
Brian De Palma, Cookie,
Oh, that's with
Peter Falk and Diane,
Peter Falk. Yeah. About the kid. Yeah.
Eddie and the Cruisers 2,
Two. Eddie Lives,
Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
which was a hit, but not that kind of hit.
No.
It's not going to be a family.
Now that
Yeah,
gave us Steven
friendly.
Soderbergh.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was
Uh,
that was like considered risque at the time. It was very
Oh, yeah.
controversial.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The Adventures of
Which
Milo and
today,
Otis.
It's pretty
Natalie
vanilla.
Moore.
I haven't watched it in a long time.
Sorry, James,
The
what?
Adventures of Milo and Otis, one of Christie's favorite movies. Actually, I enjoy it too.
Does not unseat, however, Uncle Buck. The Package with
With,
Tommy Lee Jones and Gene Hackman
Yeah.
and Dennis Franz. And so that closed out August. So it held on, though, after August. Let's see. Let me get my timeline. So it held on until September 10th was the last weekend. It was number one. So it held on against. So, again, not a lot of competition directly for that. Probably Adventures of Milo and Otis was the most family-friendly, but it was probably too kid-like to distract from Uncle Buck too much. So you start September with Relentless, The Big Picture, Sea of Love, which was
Yeah, that's
Sea of Love is what actually upset it. It was
that's a
number
Mike
one.
that's actually a good Al Pacino film. It's also got John Goodman in it.
Michael
And I
Rooker.
like the big
William
picture.
Hickey.
Huh?
William Hickey.
William Hickey. I like the big picture. If you ever got a chance to watch it, it's directed by what's his name? Mary Jamie Lee Curtis. Does the other movies. It's the one that stars Kevin Bacon. He's a kid who graduates from film school.
Oh, it's
He deals
Christopher
with Hollywood.
Guest.
Yeah.
Christopher Guest is screenplay by Michael McKean.
Check it out if you've never seen it. If you're into movies, it's wonderful. Once again, that's another movie Martin Short talks about in his book.
Well, I was gonna say, and Joe's right. The cast on this, if you're playing 6 Degrees of Separation,
It's
you're gonna win
huge.
with this film. Kevin Bacon, J.T. Walsh, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Terry Hatcher, Roddy McDowell, John Cleese, Martin Short, and Elliot Gould.
Yeah, it's one I recommend. If you're into how movies are made, it's Martin Short talks about in the book just how accurate it was.
But so Sea of Love comes out, upsets or knocks out Uncle Buck finally. But Sea of Love is itself only lasts 1 week, and that's because, and I didn't know this, the next film that knocks out Sea of Love stays number one for 3 weeks, and I wouldn't have thought about this because it's a film I don't think about for 1989. Black Rain, Ridley
Yeah.
Scott.
Ridley Scott.
That was a number one
Mm-hmm.
for 3 weeks. Black
3
Rain?
weeks.
That was his big hit coming back because
Damn.
you got to remember Blade Runner was not a huge hit. Legend was not a huge hit.
Right.
It's Black Rain.
Which is Michael Douglas in Japan, right? With Andy Garcia.
Andy Garcia.
And it has one of the most unrealistic deaths ever in a movie.
Well,
Also has Kate Capshaw
Yeah,
and
Kate Capshaw.
Louise Guzman.
yeah.
The great Luis Guzman.
The thing is it's a pretty movie. I watched it a couple of years ago. I hadn't seen it in a long time. I watched some of it. It's over 2 hours long.
Yes.
And it doesn't quite hold up.
No, it doesn't.
It's not one that I would say oh, this is a good representation of Ridley. Although it has some beautiful scenes. in it.
Yeah.
I
3
wanna-
weeks at number one, though. Damn.
Well, and again, maybe it was what was against it because the 29th, 3 films that could upset. Man, Helmdale Film Corporation was cranking them out in 89. But one of them actually is a film that's based on a book I have read, and I own the movie poster, but I've never actually seen the movie. But I like the book, so I bought the movie poster. Bobby Ann Mason is a Kentucky author, and she wrote the screenplay for the adaptation of her book In Country. And I haven't seen the film, but Bruce Willis stars in it.
In Country, it's not a great movie.
Jim Beaver. But the book itself, and I don't know how the movie does it because it references so many copyrighted materials that you can get away with in a novel. But the book itself basically is about a Vietnam vet who I'm assuming is played in the film by Bruce Willis. If I'm
Yeah.
betting. But he basically, his way of dealing with the world is MASH. And he and his younger sister end up going to DC to see the memorial.
Yeah.
And it's about their journey and how he deals with it. And it's told from the younger sister's point of view. And it's a really good book. I don't know
What's a few
about
others.
But anyway, didn't upset it. Johnny Handsome didn't upset it.
Actually, that's not a bad movie. I never saw it
Walter
a few years
Hill.
ago, and I enjoyed it. That's directed by
Walter Hill
Walter Hill.
and screenplay by Ken Friedman. Mickey
I was
Rourke.
giving you a look, but I was confused. I haven't seen Johnny Handsome. I was thinking of Johnny Dangerously.
Mm-mm. No, it's Johnny Handsome.
That's why, Chad.
It's not a quite believable thing, but it's
Are an
a fun
ice
little movie.
It's a Walter Hill film.
with Mickey
Pretty
Rourke,
good
Forrest
Streets of
Whitaker,
Fire.
and
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman, and Lance Henriksen. That's
Yeah.
bad. War Party. I know nothing about.
No.
Skip.
So we go on. Why did it say number one? These are what it was against for the next 2 weeks, Chad, after the opening week. An Innocent Man, Old Gringo,
Oh, that's with Jane Fonda and
Gregory Peck,
Gregory Peck.
also known as Spock's grandpa.
And that's all the man ever did.
Um,
Nothing of note. Right, Joe?
Breaking In, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Fabulous Baker Boys, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Mike Myers.
No, you skipped Fabulous. Fabulous Baker
Fabulous
Boy
Baker Boys
is
a
a
movie.
great movie.
And Breaking
No, I'm
In
just
is
saying
an
they did it like
underappreciated
they
movie
knock
with
out
Burt
Black
Reynolds and Casey Simasco
But
that
on
I've seen.
On October 13th,
I'm sorry, but no, real quick before you go there, the Fabulous Baker Boys, just the scene where the brothers are fighting and Bo and Jeff is trying to break Bo Bridges because it's about two piano players who are in love with the same woman played by Michelle Pfeiffer. But the scene where he's trying to break his brother's fingers because they're fighting, it's still to this day it makes me cringe.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I remember the sex scenes.
Oh well,
There you go.
all right, then.
James, continue.
Black Rain held on for 3 weeks. The next movie would hold on for 5 because babies love a talking.
Oh,
Look who's talking.
Saw it in the theater. It's a true story. I can't my
I did not know it was a sperm.
I did. So that's the story. Sitting in the theater and
No
I was-
one ever explained it to me that was a fucking sperm.
hold on. Sitting in the theater
Did somebody explain to you recently? You're acting like you're still shocked.
a little bit. Well, you'd think as many as he's taken to the face. So sitting in the theater.
I listened to the audio commentary.
listen to the,
I actually
my
looked
aunt
into that.
was married to a guy who was the cousin. It doesn't matter.
Oh my God, where is this going?
Well, he goes, "What is that, Joe?" And I screamed out, "It's a sperm." It killed at Fugit Cinema in September. I thought that came out in the spring. I have that backwards in my mind.
13th.
But let me tell you, that may have been the biggest laugh for that film was 11-year-old boy screaming out, "It's a sperm."
Hey.
Great cast though. Abe Vigoda.
No, actually that's a good movie. That's a good movie.
It is.
I'll stand by that. Skip the sequels, but that's
It's a good movie.
that's directed by Amy Heckerling.
Yes, who went also directed Fast Times at
Fast
Ridgemont
Times at Ridgemont
High,
High.
National Lampoon's European Vacation, and Clueless.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
wrote the screenplay too for Look Who's Talking.
Yeah, she directed the sequel as well, but skip them.
Yeah.
Just watch the
Yeah,
first one.
John-
It's a fun movie.
Yeah, and John Travolta and Christy Alley have great chemistry.
They do. They do. They do. They were worshiping Xenu.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep going.
Um,
And it was John Travolta's brief return to movie stardom because he was box office poison
till
before
Luke was
that.
talking.
And then, of course, he quickly became box office poison again until Pulp Fiction.
because White Man's Burden's an overlooked film.
That came out after Pulp Fiction.
keep going.
I'm just
I had the
saying.
soundtrack.
You also have the
That's
problem. Anyway, so
Burn.
that number one for 5 weeks. Here's why it stayed number one, arguably.
Damn, I didn't know it was that big of a hit.
5
Yeah,
weeks.
it was huge.
But here's what it was up against too, which may explain a little bit. Drugstore Cowboy, Gus Van Sant,
Yeah.
probably not going to upset Look Who's
No.
Talking, Fat Man and Little Boy,
Yeah, that's about the
Paul
bomb.
Newman.
Yeah,
Gross Anatomy,
it's a boring ass movie.
and Joe's all-time favorite film about where he's from, Next of Kin.
Next to Kin.
See, I thought Next to Kin would. I thought that was like a big hit when it came out, but I guess we're in Kentucky, so it automatically.
I don't think so. It's not a good movie.
No, it's not.
And there's only about 10 minutes of it that's actually shot in Kentucky.
But who also plays a Kentuckian in Next of Kin?
Liam Neeson.
Yep.
Adam Baldwin.
Yeah, but that's
So
Liam Neeson.
That's 1 week afterwards. That doesn't upset. Well, not shockingly, the next week doesn't upset it because the big film launch stars one of the most famous characters of all time, starring Bart the Bear. The Bear.
I love that movie when I was a kid.
Immediate Family, Dad.
Oh, Dad's oh my God.
Kevin Spacey again.
That isn't Dad the one with Jack Lemmon and
Jack
he's dying?
Lemmon, Ted Danson, Ethan
Ted
Hawke,
Danson's
Olympia
taking.
Dukakis,
That's
Kathy
depressing as
Beckford,
hell.
Kevin Spacey. Also coming out the weekend.
I prefer Folks with Don Amici and Tom Selleck.
That's a bad
Tom
movie.
Selleck loses a nut.
That's a bad movie.
So it's third week in release. It was up against Dad, Chad's favorite, Shocker.
Hey, Shocker is still one of the few movies that actually gave me a nightmare.
Shocker has about 2 good scenes in it.
Yes, but it still scared the shit out. That the dead girl coming out of the water.
Yeah,
scared
it's a good
me.
scene.
It scared
It's a
me
good
as
shot.
a kid. I had
But
a
that
nightmare.
third act, we should do a whole thing on Wes Craven because that third act.
Oh man, and that is Mitch Pileggi, James.
And yeah, I know.
Fuck
Chad.
you, Shocker.
I'm on your team,
It's
Chad.
not a
I'm
good
on your
movie.
team. I'm not on his team. And of course, also coming out the same weekend as Shocker,
Peter Berg in that.
also failing to unset. Look Who's Talking, the epic, well-loved romantic comedy of Mark Harmon, Worth Winning.
Oh my God, I've actually seen it, but I don't remember. It's awful.
Now this
It's
is
no summer school.
So November 3rd, we get
Deliberate Stranger.
2 films
It's a good movie.
that you would think might have a shot
Mark Harmon does not look like Ted Bundy at
Of-
all.
of
Weird as that
upsetting.
is. Sorry, James. Go ahead.
No. You get 2 films that have a shot of upsetting Look Who's Talking, I would think,
What?
because I've seen one of these and I remember liking it, though I'm sure I would not like it now. I'll talk about the one that I actually haven't seen all of in one sitting. The Phantom of the Opera.
And then Robert Englund.
That's
one.
Robert Englund.
Robert
yeah.
Englund one. I didn't know, though, Bill Nye is
Yeah.
in that. And
I
I don't remember that either.
But no, the one thing I'll say about the Phantom of the Opera, Wes Craven's fan, even though he didn't direct it, right? They just put his name on it.
I didn't know his name was on it.
I believe it's called Wes Craven's Phantom of the Opera. I could be
I
wrong.
don't think that's right. but I may
Okay,
be
and
wrong.
I may be wrong too. I thought it was, but the scene where he's putting on the pieces of skin still creeps me out to this day.
Yeah, that was
the director that went on to do something, but I can't remember who it is.
the
Anyway,
director of Phantom of the Opera with Robert Englund was Dwight Hubbard Little. Went on to do Marked for Death, Rapid Fire.
Dwight
Free
Little.
Willy.
Dwight Little. He directed Free Willy too,
Yep. Murder
and
at
Anacondas
1600.
too.
Murder at 1600 and Halloween 4.
4. He actually directed, and which was, by the way, Halloween 5 came and went, but Halloween 4 was a big hit. Keep going.
Phantom of the Opera was also competing against the one that I have seen and I liked at the time, which I'm sure I would feel differently now. Second Sight.
Yeah, yeah. That
I
I
love.
kind of
yeah,
liked it as a kid
yeah.
too, but I
John
bet
Larroquette and Bronson Pinchot.
I bet that is a turd glistening now.
Directed by Joel Zwick, though.
You're right. It doesn't say Wes Craven's the Phantom of the Opera. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
He didn't have anything to do with it.
So the next weekend also failing to upset Look Who's Talking, but a notable film and was recognized by BAFTA, but not as much by the Academy.
Can I say
Award.
one thing though? Back to Phantom of the Opera, they really did lean hard on Nightmare on Elm Street because the poster does say Robert Englund was Freddy. Now he's Phantom of the Opera in all new Nightmare.
Ah,
Go ahead, James. I'm sorry. BAFTA.
BAFTA.
maybe later.
Kenneth
I think,
Branagh's directing, and based on his screenplay, though he borrowed a lot of it from Willie the Shake. Henry V.
I am.
No, that's Henry VIII.
I am. I just wanted to go. I am.
I just want to go take a BAFTA.
Derek Jacobi, Ian Holm, Emma Thompson. If you've never seen that Henry V, you should.
I haven't. I did watch The King. You're
Okay.
welcome.
Keep moving.
Okay. So we move on. Best of the best.
Oh my
Ooh.
God!
Communion and Staying Together also failed to upset.
How can you
Communion.
pass? Go ahead.
What?
No, how could you just briefly go by Best of the Best with Eric Roberts and James Earl Jones?
I didn't even remember who was in it. Communion. I
Fletcher.
can't believe he didn't go past. Isn't Communion the one with Christopher Walken
It is.
about the guy with that talks to the aliens? Got a drug.
Yes, it's also got Andreas Katsuhira. Him.
Ain't having that fucker on the show.
No, I
Eric
done
Roberts
screwed that
knows
up.
karate.
Eric Roberts was in Runaway Train.
Now here's
Ain't
what's
never
going to
coming
shock
back.
you all. Here's what's going to shock you all. November 17th.
By the way, you still have not been. I can't wait to. Okay, go ahead. Keep going.
What
Keep going.
movie-
There's a couple of big hits. I don't know when. they
What
come out.
movie out of this list do you think is the one that upsets Look Who's Talking?
Name the list.
These are all movies that came out Friday, November 17th. All Dogs Go to Heaven,
Yeah,
Harlem Nights,
yeah,
The Little Mermaid,
yeah,
Prancer,
yeah.
and Still Magnolias.
Still Magnolias.
Harlem Nights was number one at the box office.
Directed by Eddie Murphy.
Murphy.
Not The Little Mermaid. Matter of fact,
I thought The Little Mermaid was a massive hit.
It was, but it
was.
built.
But it was
Still.
never number one. And you've got to think, Disney had made tons of films and they all made money. Matter of fact, this year alone, you saw the re-release of The Rescuers. And what was the other film they re-released that year?
I
There
think it
were
was 101.
two Disney films were re-released that
Wasn't
year.
it 101 Dalmatians?
No, it was 101 Dalmatians.
But I knew the thing about for some
Peter
odd reason,
Pan. Peter Pan was re-released.
Okay.
I knew that about The Little Mermaid. I don't know why I remember that or whatnot, but
No,
that
I-
it was.
Yeah.
It's a constant over. I think if you look, that Little Mermaid is playing in the top up until probably February and March.
Yeah, it never hit number one, but it just kept making
That's
money.
amazing.
It
But
was
no-
a return to Disney being Disney.
Can we just
At the
Harlem
box.
Nights is a good movie.
Harlem Nights is a fun movie.
That
But
means
no.
it's good if it's fun.
I was sitting there thinking about this.
I
because
like
I've
scenes
seen-
in it. You shot off my toe.
Yeah.
I have seen
Um,
every film that came out that weekend, November 17th.
I have to.
1989. And I honestly was sitting there going, what a loaded weekend.
I know.
Yeah, but that's
Still Magnolias. Prancer's probably the least out of all of these.
You know what?
I mean,
Prancer
all-
was actually a real quick story. So, what's the guy that Brandon Tartikoff left NBC? I think around Paramount, and that was his pet project was Prancer, and it didn't do well.
What's-
That's one with Sam Elliott, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And by the
And
way,
Forrest
Still
Whitaker-
Magnolias.
Google that. I may be wrong, but I don't think I am.
I've never been happier to see Julia Roberts get diabetes.
Is that what kills her?
Yes, diabetes kills her. Right?
Well, she's got a bad, I mean, she has a bad liver because of something, and yeah.
I thought it was diabetes.
What is that thumping? Anyway, go ahead.
But no, I do
Sounds
not
lovely.
care for Still Magnolias.
Some people
No,
love
no.
that movie.
I know some people do. My mom loves Still
There's a
Magnolias.
lady I work with, and that's her favorite movie.
Actually, Still Magnolias, I'll be
Has
honest.
she seen Harlem Nights?
I don't know. I'll tell you why that's funny when we're done with the episode.
Okay.
Still
I just
Magnolias.
love Harlem Nights. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Red Fox, Della Reese,
It has a great cast,
Arsenio Hall, the guy from Due South.
but it's an uneven movie.
Still Magnolias. I want to, since you brought it up, Still Magnolias. I've seen that movie probably 15 times because different people have watched it.
Yep.
Whatever that I've been around. That being said, you know what I always remember about Still Magnolias that I think I
When she
would
dies?
the two old ladies,
Yes.
and that their battles are it's like an angry Golden Girls. Just give me an entire film of two old ladies arguing, and I'll watch it. That's
You know the
what
scene I always remember is when Tom Skerritt, or when she cuts the it's the armadillo cake.
Yeah.
And she cuts the ass in to give him.
Yeah.
He goes, I always love a good piece of ass. That's what I remember.
Oh, seriously, the only thing I remember about that, I might be wrong because I haven't watched the movie in years because I just didn't
She
actually.
does have diabetes.
But Julia Roberts in the salon, they
Mhm.
making her drink orange juice.
Orange juice. Juice is better. That's the
She has
line.
type 1. It's type 1 diabetes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I could not. I thought it was boring.
No. It's not.
And that was even like. Now I think I had a crush on Dolly Parton at the time. I wonder why.
I mean,
Do her now.
I would say I would love to. Actually, you know what?
Dude, just to say that you did Dolly Parton, jeez.
Nothing sexual. Literally, I would hang out with Dolly Parton today.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
He seems fascinating. I would anyway.
And I mean, and if you get to talking, James, and it leads there,
Well,
nature
that's
take
up to
its
Dolly.
course.
Feminism, Joe. That's up to Dolly. If the Dolly wants to go that way, she's
Sexual fluidity. Keep going.
If anybody remembers this joke from 5th grade, I'll just say the punchline, part of the punchline. Hey, I gotta stay.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Are you
If
on
any
the
of our
pills?
viewers know that joke,
Are
Tweet
you on the
Chad.
pills, Chad?
hey, I gotta stay. I will tell you
Anyway.
all when we stop recording.
All right. Next weekend.
So Harlem Nights, #1. Harlem Nights gets obliterated the following week, though, by a film about this guy that travels to the future. Back to the Future 2.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater too.
The time
but-
when the actual title of the movie makes sense. That was a bad joke.
Back to the Future
He
2.
actually goes to the future.
Back to the Future 2, November 22nd is when it premieres. And it stays at #1 for 2 weeks. And this is what's interesting about this.
I'm shocked it only stayed at #1 that long.
Well, here's what's funny about this.
Going to come around and kill it.
On December 1st, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation comes out.
I was
But
pointing at it.
does not go to #1.
Oh, it doesn't. I saw it.
No,
it didn't make #1.
no, because this other film comes out that weekend, directed by the Penguin, Danny DeVito.
War of the Roses was
Little
#1.
film. War of the Roses knocks Back to the Future out and stays at #1 for 1 week. As the holiday season gets closer, after 2 weeks in release, December 17th, 1989, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation shoots.
I didn't think it ever went to #1.
It was #1 for 2 weeks.
I remember seeing it's another one of those. Like I said, through that year, I saw got to see Back to the Future. Actually, I didn't care for it as a kid. Part 2.
Oh, really?
And I still don't care for it. I like scenes in it. To me, it's derivative, and half of it's a remake of the first one. The whole third act. Anyway, and I just wanted to get to the horses of the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Just enough steak, I still feel that way. But back to what I was saying. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I remember seeing it at night in that theater just being packed.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how that crowd hits every note of laughing?
Yeah.
I can just still remember it. I can remember that in Ghostbusters, and every note it's supposed to hit, just laughing.
I like Chevy Chase then. I'm okay with Chevy Chase now.
And of all those movies, don't you think Christmas Vacation is the one people remember the most?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Wally World, and by that I mean the title Wally World, I can't tell you too many scenes of even the first National Lampoons that everybody loves, but I could almost do play-by-play. Matter of fact, actually, we got a text yesterday where we were invited to kiss someone on a certain part of their anatomy, and it got sent twice, and it took everything in me not to send back kiss his. You know,
But don't you find it funny that plays on ABC Family and all these, and they just cut it?
Yeah.
And do you guys
don't
remember
cut
watching
shit.
National Lampoon's Vacation?
National Lampoon's.
The original Vacation movie.
You know what's funny? This is another one of those where just my childhood I actually saw European Vacation before I saw you.
But you've seen Vacation.
Yes.
Have either one of you seen it recently?
No, not first.
There's still a ton of fucks. There's still a ton of titties. I mean, it's just, and 2 movies later, we get this movie that now is remembered as this holiday family film that actually has a lot of shit cut out of it when you watch it on television.
Literally, they cut out shit. Shitter's full.
Shitter's full.
Yeah. By the way, the one thing my wife and I never got it for because it sold out, and she was like, "Don't pay more than she was hoping it'd be half off the day after." when Hallmark did the Cousin Eddie's RV as a
Yeah.
Christmas ornament.
I wanted that.
Anyway, that stays number one till December 24th, that weekend that ends December 24th. And then War of the Roses comes back in its fourth week and reclaims number one. The reason that's interesting to me is what happens the rest of that year.
Well, real quick, before you go into that, I just want to say one thing about War of the Roses and Danny DeVito. I really feel like Danny DeVito is one of those underappreciated directors.
Agreed. His Hoffa movie's good that I don't think people remember
No,
either.
and The Irishman's going to come out and make people even forget it even more. Danny DeVito, as a director, had such a unique vision. And it's a shame. He does a lot of shorts now, but he hasn't done a feature-length film since, what, Death to Smoochie? Or did he do one after Death to Smoochie?
I think he did something with, it's
Duplex.
not The Apartment, it's Duplex.
Duplex. Yeah. Duplex.
I've never seen it.
That's actually the only Danny DeVito movie I haven't seen.
I even saw that TV movie he did with Rita. Yeah.
Rita
You know what I'm talking about?
Queen
That's
Bee,
his
yeah.
directorial debut.
Yeah. But,
The
Matilda, Throw Mama from the Train, Death to Smoochie, War of the Roses. Did he do Ruthless People? Did he direct Ruthless People?
No, Zaz did.
Zaz did. Okay.
Zucker's
You know,
Abraham Zucker.
Real
And
quick,
that's a movie I don't think they get credit for.
No.
real quick.
No,
I know it's not 89, but you mentioned Death to Snoochie. I got to see an advanced screener of that back in the day for a blip in time when I was still an undergrad. UK was selected by theaters to be one of those advanced screening locations, and they would give out tickets to random students. And I got to see Death to Smoochie before it came out. And I rolled the entire, well, not the entire time, but I was like, this is a movie that's really funny. It's dark. And I don't think it was what people wanted Robin Williams to be doing, but I actually own Death to Smoochie. I like it. There.
I love Death to Smoochie. But no, just real
I
quick.
like it, but it doesn't connect with me. It's weird.
I didn't mean to cut you off about December 24th, but I just wanted to say about Danny DeVito. He's one of my favorite directors, and he doesn't get credit.
And he had a distinct vision.
Yes.
Yes, Chad's right. And and one more thing about War of the Roses, and
Is this about divorce again?
It is. It's one of the best movies about divorce.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well,
It's
we know,
that,
though,
the
that
Squid and the
it-
Whale, Kramer versus Kramer, but
We know
Keep
that
going.
it didn't inspire your parents to get divorced, though, because they were well on their way. I'm not saying it's something you did, but we can't.
I'm not saying it's something I did, but the conversation started in '78.
Anyway, no, the reason I think it's interesting that War of the Roses and Christmas Vacation wrapped up, bookended each other effectively for all of December is December. We also got movies that I remember really well. Driving Miss Daisy,
Yes, which won the Oscar?
Glory.
Glory, which is the one I was wondering when you were going to tell me. Glory is one of the best Civil War movies directed by Edward Zwick ever made.
Yeah.
And just a great cast.
It's a depressing movie, but
Yeah.
yes,
Glory, Lincoln. Man, I'm trying to think of the number of the third.
there's a ton.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But no, I'm
December 15th, by the way, these are the movies that came out on December 15th that failed to upset Christmas Vacation. Blaze,
yeah, that's actually a good movie with
Paul
Lena
Newman.
Davidovich, and Paul Newman about Blaze Starr, the famous.
Yeah,
Actually, she was a stripper.
yeah. Driving Miss Daisy came out that weekend. Glory came out that weekend. And, of course, the film that is best known from that weekend that introduced us all to the revolutionary technology that was the Power Glove, The Wizard.
The Wizard. I loved The Wizard as a kid.
December 20th I want to talk about, though, because you get Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
remember was advertised the living daylights out. They advertised that in comic book. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is I think it's an important cultural touchstone because we get Roger and Me.
yeah. It started Michael Moore's career. Actually, even more started Michael Moore's career. It started the documentary as a feature film.
Right.
And you love him or hate him, and everybody's got an opinion. I have an opinion. My opinion is I'm not particularly crazy about the man. I don't think I'd enjoy hanging out with him.
No.
We've read about him and know people that have talked to him and have said just probably wouldn't. But he's a talented filmmaker.
Canadian bacon, man.
And he has a voice.
He does have.
And he has an opinion. And he doesn't back away from sharing either.
All right.
Right.
And then the end of the year gives us two films. One, of course, being Joe's Citizen Kane, Tango and Cash.
Yeah,
I like Tango
I did
and
not
Cash quite a
realize
bit.
Tango and Cash came out that late in the year.
I didn't either.
Which is,
'Cause I was
again,
wondering when you were going to bring it up because I'm sitting
Terry-
here like,
Terry
ahead.
Hatcher is in that too. She was the Kevin Spacey of women in 1989. That doesn't play well
yeah.
now.
I can't believe that Tango and Cash wasn't number one.
I always forgot that Robert Zadar is in that.
you talk, but Jack Palance had Batman and Tango and Cash in one year.
And that's a hell of a comeback
Yeah,
for a guy that was in Shane.
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
the other
Tango
movie
and
that
Cash
came out-
is a cheesy action film, but man, it's fun.
I think it's a hell of a lot of fun. It's got Michael J. Pollard in it.
Yeah.
It's basically his cue.
The film that I want to that also came out the 22nd is a film that I argue and will continue to argue, and even if you prove me wrong, I'll argue is better than Ghost. Always.
Always was probably not a big hit, was it?
No,
No.
but
It's a remake.
It's a good movie.
It is. A
It
good
is.
movie.
I'd like to I've enjoyed it now looking back on it because it's Spielberg, it's John Goodman, it's Richard Dreyfuss, it's Holly Hunter. It's a remake of a guy
Audrey
named
Hepburn.
Joe, right?
Audrey Hepburn is in that. What now?
It's
Oh yeah, a guy named Joe.
A guy named Joe. Yeah, Audrey Hepburn hadn't worked in years. He got her back for that. She's his angel in heaven. I wonder if it's just too schmaltzy now.
No, it still holds up.
You think so?
Yeah, I watched it a few years ago, and I enjoyed it. And
I told you I rewatched Reminiscence, and I thought, my memories. It's not that I don't. I was like, oh man, we really were that young making it that schmaltzy. Everything else we did was dark as shit.
yeah.
Also,
No,
Keith David. Don't forget Keith David isn't always.
Is he really?
So is John Goodman.
I said John Goodman.
I
I
didn't
don't
hear you.
remember Keith David.
Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
yeah, always is. It's as Joe said, it's Spielberg and Amblin.
It's a beautiful film.
and it's to me it's more effective than Ghost for me. I like Ghost. I don't know. The pottery scene doesn't do anything for me. It's supposed to be sexy. I'm like, he's dead. I don't need that.
I don't know. I like the Naked Gun 2.5 version of the pottery scene.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
That whole sex scene with the trains going in the tunnel. Oh man, that's good
No,
stuff.
but the other
Which is
thing,
funny because it's directed by Jerry Abrams and directed by Jerry Zucker, and his brother's making fun of him.
Yeah.
And Naked Gun 2.5, which is David Zucker.
but no, the one thing about Always too is it introduced me to the song "Crazy Love." She gives me love, love, crazy love. That's the song they dance to. And
Oh, there's another better song in that movie, isn't there?
I don't know, but Crazy Love is what it introduced me to Crazy Love, and I actually have it on my iPod, and I listen to it from time to time when I'm in that mood. So
When you're in that always mood.
yeah,
When the fuck are you in an always mood?
I don't know.
You're never in that mood with me
I wonder why.
because my tits aren't big enough and they're furry.
No,
I have big furry tits.
So James, are you done? Is that it?
Well, that's just a rundown of what was huge. But I mean, obviously, there's tons of other films. that came out.
There's a couple. Well,
I can't believe you didn't bring up Death Row Game Show. I don't know that came out in '89, but I can't find a copy of it, and I remember it barely as a kid. It was one of the straight.
I also didn't bring up Burt Rigby, You're a Fool, directed by Carl Reiner.
so the two movies. The one thing I will mention about 1989 that is because as
It's a
many
long ass episode, by the way.
I know as many as good films as 1989 had. It was actually the 1 year from the 80s to the late 90s that didn't have an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. He had no movie in 1989.
It was Twins was the year
But
It was 1988.
and then Kindergarten Cop was in 90.
90. There was
But
no
you
Arnold
do-
Schwarzenegger movie in 1989. I don't know why he took that year off, but he did.
But you do get films to make up for it, such as Rutger Hauer and Blind Fury.
Blind Fury.
Blind Fury.
That's 89.
A friend of ours, that is still his name on my
Kevin
phone.
Shelton, you are Blind Fury, sir.
But no, two movies that he didn't mention that have a personal interest for me from 1989. So we mentioned Batman, we mentioned Toxic Crusader. Even though Toxic Crusader technically isn't a comic book movie, it is a superhero movie. The third superhero movie from 1989 that you failed to mention, sir, and you should be ashamed,
I went by only what charted, Chad.
Return of Swamp Thing.
I went only by what charted, Chad.
All right. I don't want to go back. I love Wes Craven. I don't want to go back anytime soon and watch both of those movies. But in my memory, Return of Swamp Thing is probably more entertaining.
Okay, so I have gone
Other than
back.
Adrian Barbeau is topless in the other one. And by
Yes.
the way, that's worth the price of admission is at any price.
Yes. So
I know that was very sexist, but even the ladies out there are going to go, yeah, Adrian Barbeau topless.
I have seen
Barbeau
both of those
bots.
recently, and
Mhm.
yes, Return of Swamp Thing is still fun. However, I watched Return of Swamp Thing. I wore out the VHS tape I had of Return of Swamp Thing. I watched it so much.
That much?
I watched it constantly. I love the creatures. I love Swamp Thing. Heather Locklear.
She's not topless, though.
No, but I've watched that recently. Damn, that movie's a dog turd. It is a dog turd. There is a whole scene where she's like, "I'm trapped in this prison and I can't get out." The window where she's talking to the villain is literally the full length of half her body. I can't get out of this. I'm locked in here.
It opens up with Cretans, though, right?
Yes.
Born on the Bayou.
And it's showing clips from the comic book. The other movie that you didn't mention that came out in 1989. So there was a small independent film company that actually started in 1988. Full Moon Entertainment. 1989 actually saw their rise to popularity with The Puppet Master.
Bill Hickey.
Bill Hickey. 3 movies in 1 year Bill Hickey was in. I'm sure he was way in a lot more in 1989 because, again, he was a working actor who.
Well, and one of the,
1989 also had the run of a few series that I also like. I think 1989 is the year Tales from the Crypt.
there's a couple other things. Speaking of television, and I know we're
Tom
talking.
died. I can't check it.
I'll check
We've
it.
been talking about cinematic films, but I should also bring up there's a major TV film that people still talk about today.
It's maybe one of the best westerns ever made.
1989
Dove.
was the premiere.
Of Tales from the Crypt. Yeah. So
You
I
also
thought-
get Fred Savage. I mentioned Wizards earlier. We should mention Little Monsters was the name.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about
Little
Little
Monsters.
Monsters.
But no,
and Joe, there's also
Lonesome
another
Dove
89
is one of the best westerns ever made.
and it was a TV film, but
You
it
don't agree?
I haven't watched it as an adult.
Oh.
I was bored to tears with Lonesome Dove.
I could watch it in the background all the time.
And there's only one scene I remember with Lonesome Dove. It's Robert Duvall loses a leg in that, right?
Spoiler, but yes.
Yes, he loses a leg, and then there's the scene where they
He
whip off,
loses his life.
but he loses a leg, and there's the whole scene where he whips off the sheet, and there's the
The
this
stunt.
yeah. So yeah, no,
You haven't watched it in a long time?
I haven't watched it. I was a kid.
Oh, Chad, pick it up. Well, actually, my copy's really
I
shit.
mean-
It's a terrible DVD version. But
there's also historically
Streets of Laredo, a sequel to it, is pretty good. Not the sequel with John of whatever. That one's terrible.
And and that when I was a kid, westerns to me was Silverado. That's the movie that's the western that I enjoyed.
Lonesome
So-
Dove holds up. a
So
lot
maybe
better.
I need, and I'm more of the in tune of what those westerns are now. So maybe I need to go back and watch. Lonesome
Yeah,
Dove.
Lonesome Dove's a lot of fun.
there's
It's just a
also
great character.
89 internationally. There's a film that's released that it's not important that the film was released per se, even though I think people should see it. But it's the second film, I believe, of a certain New Zealand director gets released in 89. Meet the Feebles
Meet
by
the Feebles, yes, by Peter Jackson. I actually brought that up to him before
Yeah,
we
I
started this
forgot about it.
episode. There's a lot of stuff, so I know we need to wrap it up. First of all, I need to tell Chad to go watch Lonesome Dove. I can't
Chad,
recommend that
real
enough.
quick, Chad. I
Yeah.
need to say this because you left off a comic book film that comes out this year.
Oh, do tell.
Made and arguably, still I argue to a certain extent, it's still accurate to the comic. New World Pictures released Dolph Lundgren as Frank Castle in
The Punisher.
Punisher. Yeah, I
Punisher.
didn't know if that. I thought that was 1988.
nope,
So I'm
89.
sorry. I didn't even bother looking that up.
Yep, no, that's just going through. And again, there's a lot of films, and we did American box office, but internationally, you would have Tetsuo, the Iron Man.
Oh God, that movie scarred me as a kid.
Never saw it.
There's a whole scene where he's having sex with a lady, and his turns into a drill. Yeah.
War Requiem, which was United Kingdom, did pretty good box office there, but it's known mostly now for being the last role of Laurence Olivier. So again, you start to see some international box office as well. So I wanted to bring up a couple.
One other British film: The Cook, The Thief, The Liar, and His Lover.
The Maiden.
I screwed it up. If you ever get a chance to check it out, that movie is still on the verge of distasteful 30 years later. It's a beautiful film. Michael Gambon, Helen Mirren.
The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover.
The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. There's not a better movie that has Helen Mirren naked and cannibalism.
And it's again
I should sell that to you to go see it.
Again, no, I'm glad you brought that up because
get these long wide shots that just stay for 20 minutes. And Michael Gambon is just a pure evil son of a bitch in it.
And you also have Woody Allen has a couple films that came out that year.
Crimes and Misdemeanors, yeah.
And a couple other ones. So I wanted to bring that up because, again, some of these were bigger internationally than they were in America. Obviously, the ones Meet the Feebles, New Zealand, all that stuff. But I didn't want to bring up 1989, 9 O'Clock America was the only thing that had stuff going on. Because actually, as Joe pointed out, The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. No, if you haven't seen it, yeah.
Have you seen it, James? You have seen it?
I have.
Yeah.
I believe it was a film.
The first line when I typed in Tetsuo sex.
It's right there with you. So, of course, there's a sex scene in.
No, that part.
The Iron Man's drill penis.
There you go.
Now, Helen Mirren does not have a drill penis in this movie. It's unfortunate, but we missed that in the script writing stages. I didn't see it till a few years ago, and I couldn't believe that got released. It was an NC-17 then.
Well, she was in Caligula.
No,
it's worse than Caligula.
There's a lot. Well, no, because Caligula had sex scenes inserted that were shot and inserted by Bob, whatever his name was,
Guccione,
after the movie was done shooting.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And real quick, there for the sex.
Real quick, I did want to bring up, while it was technically made and released in 1988, there was an Australian film that actually I think was 19th overall for the year in the United Kingdom. And of course, I want to mention this because I know it's a film that Chad uses to excite himself. Young Einstein with Yahoo series.
I saw that in the theater too. Anyway, moving around.
I had to put bubbles in beer.
Thank you all so much for listening. I hope this wasn't too much for you all, but we really wanted to do 1989
because it was a good year.
It was an important year for us. It's a year that I think that influenced all three of the Boneheads quite a bit.
Yeah.
Especially me. I can only talk for myself, but I think the other two agree that a lot of our childhood is wrapped up in that one year for some reason. It's not. I mean, we could do one on 84, and I'd love to, but it's 89 for some odd reason.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's because that was about the point. I mean, I was 9. So this is when my parents were starting to let me. My parents were pretty strict. But I was starting to be able to watch some PG-13 films. I was starting to. Plus, I think, to be honest, the inmates may not have been running the asylum anymore, but there was just so much out there, and you had Canon making films, and you had.
Well, there was a lot of creativity.
Yeah, Full Moon was out. Full Moon was out, just releasing crazy films.
And you had Troma.
Now it's all on streaming.
Yeah.
Right. Anything different is on streaming. I'm not bitching about our Iron Man films.
Yeah.
But any big movie is basically something that we either is a sequelize or continuation of a story, or there's not a big, huge original film.
Right.
There's just not. Very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Tune in, share us. And if you have any comments or saying things that you think we should have added that we missed, Twitter, Facebook, email us. Right, James? Right, Chad?
Yep.
Let us know. Thank you all so much.
And just remember, hey, I gotta stay.
We'll eventually do 1939.
I don't know when. Maybe next week. Who knows?
Yeah. Now, for some reason, I've got a Rob Zombie song in my head where he says 1969.
Giggity.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Uh-huh.